Following an unprecedented barrage of missiles and drones from Iran headed towards Israel, and their Middle Eastern partners helping them fight them down, beat them down, including the US and the UK, Israel has retaliated and sent their own attack against Iran to send another message. Hello, I'm Adrienne Batra. With me are Lorrie Goldstein and Warren Kinsella. I think everybody knows, and I think that most people agree, aside from the crazies that you see protesting against and the anti-Israel, anti-Semitic chants and protests going on in the streets, Warren knows and understands Israel had to retaliate. They had to answer for what Iran did. And our foreign affairs minister, Melanie Joly, who we all agreed that is perhaps one of the worst foreign affairs ministers this country has ever seen, perhaps the world, said that Israel should, quote, take the win and not do anything and escalate. Well, thank goodness Israel didn't listen to her.
Yeah, what she said is disgraceful. It was despicable. There's a child clinging to life in Israel. It was hit by a fragment from one of those missiles that Iran sent. And fortunately, she's still alive, but she's still in hospital. To just dismiss something like that, just alone, as take the win, is a disgrace, and again demonstrates why I and others say I think she's the worst cabinet minister in the history of Confederation. And that's hard to do. But yes, Israel did what international law and morality permitted it to do, which is to respond to the attack by Iran, more than 300 missiles and drones a few days ago. And, fortunately, there was not a greater loss of life. And fortunately, not just, the US and Britain participated in protecting Israel, so too did Jordan, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE. Like, that's wonderful news. But, 50 years ago, those were the nations that were attacking Israel in the Yom Kippur War. So I think what Israel decided to do is send a message to Iran. You guys sent all these missiles and you failed. We're going to send you a message that if we decide to succeed, we will do so. They struck far in Iran. They hit nothing near a civilian location. They hit military establishments, and they sent a message. If we have to strike out at you in a meaningful way, we have the ability to do it. So hopefully that sends a message to Iran and changes their behavior. But there's no question, I think now the whole world is seeing the principal mastermind of this campaign of anti-Semitism and hatred against Israel and against the West is Iran.
Lorrie?
Exactly. Iran is the real enemy here. They're state sponsor of terrorism. They sponsor Hamas. They sponsor Hezbollah. And I think what happened there was that Iran was getting pressure from people who go out in the street and say, Jews don't belong here, get out of here, blah, 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 are the source of all the evil in the world. They're getting pressure from those kind of people to, enter this conflict. But I thought what they did, there was a tragedy, but it was a feint. It wasn't an invasion. This was drones, and Israel responded in the same way. And it seems to me that Israel is then mindful of this shifted the ground a bit. Suddenly, nations that were criticizing Israel for what's happening in Gaza were saying, no. They have a right to respond. This is another nation attacking them. And so I think they don't want to give up on that goodwill. So I think what we had here was, okay, Iran says, okay, we're watching this, we're in this, we might do something. And Israel says, if you do something, then we're going to respond. But the only good thing is that it didn't happen in terms of a war footing. My concern at the moment is not about Israel and Iran, although the risk of it becoming a regional war is obviously greater than it was a couple of weeks ago. My concern is that the ground has shifted around the world in terms of Jew hatred is now open. It's accepted in countries like Canada. I never thought I would see that happen. I don't trust any of our politicians, although Polyev has certainly been, I mean, you know, it's been better than Trudeau, but I don't trust any of them on this anymore. The way they have responded to attacks on synagogues, fire bombings, shooting up Jewish day schools, marching into Jewish neighborhoods and calling the occupants Zionist, whatever it was, Zionist infested. And the lack of response from our leaders who always talk to us about tolerance. It doesn't matter if you don't think it's offensive. If the injured party is offended, it is offensive. You know, when my parents, well, in my family was safe during the Holocaust. My wife's family, who was Catholic, my father-in-law ended up in Mauthausen as a he was put in there for organizing an underground newspaper. My mother-in-law worked in a German work camp, which was one above concentration. And when they would see the things that Warren has written about so admirably for years about the extreme right, and it's, you know, they would always say, they wouldn't talk a lot about the experience, but they would say, it can happen again. And I never believed that.
Yeah.
And the problem now to me, and thank God we have, frankly, and I want to say this, allies like Warren Kinsella, non-Jewish allies like Warren. That's what gives me hope, that most Canadians are decent and they get this, right? But to me now, there's this new threat, and it's not vilified. It's from the left.
Yeah.
It's in the universities. It's in the unions.
Look what's happening on Columbia campus right now.
And you know, you have Ivy League university presidents who, I don't care that it was Republican who asked them, but who say, okay, is advocating genocide against the Jewish people against your campus code of conduct? It depends. It's the only group I trust in Toronto, and I know they've been criticized, is the Toronto police. And I'll tell you why. Because I live in a Jewish area. They have had a command post here for 6 months, within days, and they've stayed. And that's an enormous expense. And to me, what is their intelligence that they've set up a command post outside a Jewish day school? 6 months, right? And so I just, I'm glad I was able to say it to Warren. I'm so thankful that we have people like him in Canada.
And I think that that's such a critical part to this conversation, Warren, is that we are rational, clear thinking, we have moral clarity on this issue. And we understand that Israel has to fight back. They have to answer. And they did so strategically. But to Lorrie's point of what happens in the aftermath, not necessarily over there, but over here.
Exactly.
On the college campuses, the actions that are taken on the streets of every major city across North America, it is far more vitriolic and far more hatred fueled than in some cases what we're seeing over there. But I'm wondering, you know, this go around, does this dissipate? Or is this pure, like, we're now getting into the summer, nicer weather. I fear summer protests are in the offing.
Well, firstly, thank you, Lorrie, for those kind words. But I'm just, you know, following my heart. And when you follow your heart, it's easy. And, you know, I've seen the polling, guys. My firm, the Daisy Group, we do polling. I've worked with major pollsters around the world. And I would love to be able to tell you that this problem is going to disappear when Israel prevails in the war, as Israel will. Israel will defeat Hamas and wipe out most of it. That is going to happen. But the problem is not going to disappear. We have a problem in one segment of society, and you can see it on your TV screen or on your phone screen or computer screen every single night. It's young people. You know, Generation Z from the age of 18 to 24, and millennials from the age of about 25 to 42. Like, guys, I've seen polling. I support targeting Jews. I support Hamas. Hamas was justified. Like, I'm directly quoting from polling that I have seen. So the vast majority of Canadians and Americans and Europeans support Israel and have the same view that we do. And yet I'm proud to work for a newspaper that I would say is the most pro-Israel newspaper on this continent. But we have a big problem. And the problem is with young Canadians and young Americans and young Europeans. And that is going to be a long-term project. It is not going to take days. It's going to take years to fix that because we've let something go. We've made a mistake and we're at risk of losing a generation, not just a Jew hatred, but hatred of democracy and decency and diversity. We're going to lose them. And that's something we have to devote ourselves to fixing as soon as possible.
Lorrie, last word to you on this. You know, we've said it so many times. The mask is off. It slipped before. It's just off. It's become acceptable to spew this venom. We've heard people screaming on the streets in Canada. We are Hamas. We've heard the go back to Europe. We've heard, you know, people say the worst things that anybody could say to someone who is Jewish. I truly believe that this eventually will dissipate when Israel is successful, when things shift in and around the world. I just worry, to Warren's point, of the long-term impact that some of these young people have this rooted in their minds now.
Yeah, look, I agree Israel will win this one, but this is the fifth war between Israel and Hamas since 2008.
Yeah.
And one of the tragedies, and I understand it, is that new recruits for Hamas are look, what's happened, feeling the way I do does not mean I want innocent Palestinians dying. It doesn't mean I want Muslims in Canada attacked. You know, I don't want any of that. And because Warren's right, once you let that genie of hatred out, it's not just Jews. It goes everywhere. In the Holocaust, 6 million Jews died, but 6 million people who weren't Jewish died. Russian POWs, Slavs, Gypsies, I'm sorry, Roma, I'm using the incorrect word, Roma, homosexuals, the disabled. Once that hatred gets out, it goes after everyone. And that's what and I agree, this is long-term. It is re-engaging in the universities. It is re-engaging in the union movement. And it is, you know, it is explaining to people that when you give up your rational intellectual look at an argument, when, for example, saying that what I want Hamas to return the hostages, I want Israel to stop the attack, and I want the world to help the Palestinians. When that is an unacceptable position, when you're accused of being a Zionist devil for that kind of position, we're a long way off from the things this country was founded on. And the last thing I'd say is that I've been around the sun for a long time, and one of its original premises was fairness to Israel. And I'm honored that people like you, Adrienne, have continued that, and people like Joe Warmington and Brian Lilly and Warren. It means a lot, because a lot of my friends ask me, "What's it like?" Because they're at other newspapers and media where it's a very different thing, and I say it's fine. It's fine for me because I see the allies we have. But I really worry about Jewish journalists at some other media in this country.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let us know what you think in the comments below. Like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and go to the TorontoSun.com. You're going to find commentary and coverage there you will not find anywhere else.